together from the cosmic reaches of the universe. Here, in this great hall of the Signal Watch, are the most powerful forces of good ever assembled. Join us as we discuss all manner of topics across the multiverse of comic books, history, creators, storylines, movies, and more. The Signal Watch podcast presents Kryptonian Thought Beast, a comics podcast series dedicated to truth, justice, and peace for all mankind.
Hello, I'm Johnny Cash. I hear the train a-comin', it's rolling around a bend, and I ain't seen the sunshine since I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps a-rollin' on down to San Antone. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always...
Hey everybody, and welcome back to the Signal Watch. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Steens, and with me this evening is...
Jamie Steens.
And we are talking about...
The Suicide Squad.
From 2021. So I got a little feedback today.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, from one of our listeners, who has listened to way more of the podcast in the past 3 months than I think is reasonable. But he suggested we actually recap movies at the very beginning.
Oh.
In case it's been a while, because people sometimes will go back and pull these off the shelf and go, yeah, I watched that movie at some point.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah, but, you know, it might have been a while. So, The Suicide Squad, real quick, I'm going to give this a go, is based on a DC comic book series, which initially launched in the mid-'80s. This particular movie is the second installment, and it is, in fact, a sequel. You see recurring characters from the original movie. And it's basically about a bunch of criminals, superpowered criminals, metahumans, who are, as part of their prison sentence, are given a work release program, for lack of a better way to put it, where they're sent on a mission to go do something that's super, super dangerous that will be off books. And they are called Task Force X officially and Suicide Squad unofficially. And this time, it's some familiar faces, including Colonel Rick Flag and Captain Boomerang, Harley Quinn, and they are sent to the DC fictional country of Corto Maltese, which first appeared, I think, in the 70s, maybe in the 80s. And it's just kind of the all-purpose Banana Republic for the DC universe. They then have to infiltrate because a new president has taken over who's unfriendly to the U.S., take him out, maybe, but really their target is something called Utenheim, which has a large monster inside of it. We're going to spoil the hell out of this, so just be ready to go.
It's a giant starfish.
It's a giant starfish. So there's a lot of familiar DC characters in this. I'll go ahead and start there, if you're familiar with DC Comics at all. Not the least of which is King Shark, who is played by... no less than Sylvester Stallone.
He's
Academy Award
voiced by Sylvester Stallone. Let's not... it's a stand-in for the character.
Yes.
And let's give him some credit. On set, King Shark was played by Steve Agee.
Agee? Oh, that's the same guy who was in the control room.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It has dual credit here.
He used to be on the Sarah Silverman show back in the day.
Okay.
Margot Robbie returns as Harley Quinn. Idris Elba is Bloodsport. Joel Kinnaman returns as Colonel Rick Flag. Viola Davis is one of my favorite comic characters, full stop, Amanda Waller. Michael Rooker is Savant, who is, as I knew him, as in Birds of Prey villain. Nathan Fillion is briefly in it as TDK.
Pete Davidson
is Blackguard. Sean Gunn plays a couple of different roles, including the Weasel. And anyway, yeah, there's just a ton of characters because part of the magic of Suicide Squad is people die in these movies. It's Are
we done with the recap portion?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it was really funny.
You didn't see the first Suicide Squad. You've never seen it.
Yeah. So, full disclosure, I did not see the first Suicide Squad, nor do I know that much about the Suicide Squad. My knowledge is limited to, some brief mentions here and there in the comics, from the cartoons, from the TV shows. So, and not a lot of the characters at that. Obviously Amanda Waller, Rick Flag, those are the two big ones, I think. But other than that, not so much. But yeah, so spoiler. You shouldn't be listening to this if you haven't watched the movie. Pete Davidson's character dies really early in the movie.
Like in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Before the credits roll.
Yeah. And it was funny because when he showed up, I thought, oh, hey, I forgot Pete Davidson was in this. And then kaboom, I was like, oh, that's why you didn't see very much of him in the trailer. Oh, that's how this movie's going to go. I get it. Because it kills 5 or 6 of the main Suicide Squad members in the first...
Well, part of Suicide Squad from the comics, I'm going to take it way, way back.
Sure.
In 1987 or so, 88, my brother and I went to a comic book convention thing, as they used to be back then, at the Holiday Inn on Riverside, the one that's the big circular thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's where they used to have the comic conventions when we were kids. Mm-hmm. And Jason bought a bunch of Suicide Squad issues off a rack. It was a fairly new series at that point. And we devoured those things because at the time, it was kind of the height of Vietnam media. And, the Nam was out as a comic, which was a comic book about Vietnam, or the Nam, depending on where you're from.
Or the Nom Nom.
The Nom Nom. Yeah.
Your King Shark.
So it was pitched exactly as this. It was Amanda Waller is at Belle Reve Prison, and she's got the worst of the worst of, whoever's been a villain that hasn't, frankly, been used as property at DC in quite some time. And so we were just thought this thing was crazy. The initial issue, I remember, had Enchantress and Captain Boomerang, was that her name? Enchantress? I think so.
There is an Enchantress. I don't know if she is.
There's one in Marvel. I think that's the name of the one. It doesn't matter. Bronze Tiger was my dude. He was my favorite. I'm still mad he hasn't shown up in one of these movies yet.
Give it time.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was crazy to see. It's oh my God, they're all villains. They're all terrible people, and they're all being terrible at each other as they're being sent on this mission where they're basically being frog marched and are pretty much convinced they're all going to die. You have Rick Flag kind of in the middle, just kind of yelling at these people because he didn't care if they died. He had the rare opportunity to have a bunch of soldiers around him who didn't really care what happened to them. So, and I think the title or the cover rather of the first issue, it said in this issue someone dies, which became kind of a thing in comics in general, to be who dies? And of course everyone then came back, except in Suicide Squad. If you got blown up in Suicide Squad,
you're
blown
gone.
Up in Suicide Squad.
Yeah.
I didn't read it that long. At some point,
unless you're the Weasel.
So, comics, I didn't understand how comics were distributed at that point in my life. I just went literally to the Piggly Wiggly that was near my house and went through the comics rack, and whatever was there I bought. That piqued my interest, and if I had $5, I bought $5 worth of comics. And then flash forward to, DC's going to do all these movies, and they get this bright idea of, we've done one Superman movie. No, I don't think Wonder Woman had come out yet. We've done a Batman versus Superman, but no Batman movie, but let's do a Suicide Squad movie, which was, in my opinion, as everything DC has done with its movies, just stupid.
Do you feel this is how it's looked to me as kind of an outsider. It looks like they are just desperately trying to catch up with Marvel and doing it in such a way that everything is rushed. Like, I feel like their Justice League movie was rushed.
Well, why would you say that, Jamie?
Because... No, I mean, everyone's said this before. I mean, they haven't had establishing solo movies.
Yeah, I think someone at Warner Brothers decided the way they were going to differentiate themselves is they weren't going to do the establishing movies, which is crazy.
And you kind of need those to care about the characters.
Right.
And not just have a roll call, which is what you said happened in the first Suicide Squad movie.
Right. So I will also be candid and say, and not just because I'm a comic fan and I didn't like the movie, but I genuinely believe Suicide Squad from 2016 or whatever is literally one of the worst movies I've ever sat through.
Wow.
It's not incompetent in a, like, rotor kind of way.
Was it partially, though, because you felt kind of insulted by it? Like, these are characters you care about, and they ruined it?
No, it was a badly made movie.
Oh, okay.
I mean, and I don't care, you know, now there's all this talk of, you know, give us the Ayer cut. You know, the director is running around trying to get his cut, but apparently they didn't like whatever they got back at the studio, and they sent it to multiple editing houses and basically paid them. So you edit it, and you edit it, and you edit it. Then they brought it back to Warner Brothers and cut all that together into what we got.
I didn't even see it, and I know that's awful.
It's a terrible idea. Consequently, the movie starts 3 times. And I'm not making that up. They keep introducing the characters over and over and over, which, by the way, was my beef, frankly, with Birds of Prey. Was like, for all of the, like, there's a lot of cute stuff and a lot of cool stuff and a lot of funny stuff in Birds of Prey. That movie takes an hour to decide it's going to get started with its story.
Yeah.
And Suicide Squad kind of laid the groundwork for that. Versus this one that says, in the first 5 minutes, we're going to kill half the cast that you thought you were going to see. Viola Davis is going to turn around and say, Task Force X, this is what it is. You're in it now. You mean the Suicide Squad? That's what I mean. And they're off to the races, and they go very quickly. This guy does this. That guy does that. This girl does this. Got it? Great. You're in Corto Maltese now.
I think this movie also used flashbacks in a really useful way. Like, it actually gave the movie energy, which is something that you don't see very often. Sometimes when there's a flashback, it's like, come to a complete stop. Got to go back and tell this story. But no, I mean, this was just, this is how this plan came together. And it's kind of a magic trick to me, how it was done.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. There's a lot of flashback in this movie, starting with the first scene.
Yeah.
There's a flash forward, which brings us to the second scene being a flashback.
Well, I thought, this is all you're going to see of these dead people that have been on screen for like 30 seconds. But no, they get a little, they get like 3 days. It was like 3 days ago or something. I can't remember what the timeline was, but yeah.
So basically, yeah, there was an A and a B squad. They sent in an A squad, all gets wiped out, except for Harley and
Rick Flag.
But yeah, so I mean, Marvel had a guy running the company at the time after they'd been bought by Disney. He'd kind of slid in I guess like the 90s. His name was Ike Perlmutter, and he. If you ever want to hear about like why there were no female superhero movies at Marvel until Captain Marvel, is basically Ike Perlmutter. He was just an old dude who was, you know, an asshole, and he was super horrible to the actual comics company, even after they were making money through the movies and all that for Disney. And eventually was shown the door. But one of the, and partially because of what happened, in that he fired more or less James Gunn from Disney for basically his political tweets, and Ike Perlmutter was a whatever it is, Mar-a-Lago. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't know if you were trying to say MAGA.
He was MAGA, but I think I was trying to work in Barb and Star in there somewhere by accident. So
go to Vista Del Mar.
Yeah, he's going to Vista Del Mar. And anyway, so DC just goes, oh, well, we'll hire you, James Gunn, like the next day. So,
that's when that happened.
Yeah.
Oh,
so he
wondering how that.
And there's rumors he snuck back in to do scenes in Endgame, but no one will verify it. But there's rumors that the Guardian scenes you see in Infinity War and Endgame were still him. Although everyone's like, no, it was all the Russo brothers. Probably for legal reasons. So, anyway, James Gunn wrote this and directed it. Was basically given a free hand to go do whatever he wanted to do.
He said that he had more freedom working on this than he did on the Guardians movie, which shocked me.
Well, that's kind of where DC has gone, in all fairness. DC, having had failed with their cohesive universe, and they're just throwing shit at the wall at this point.
Guardians just has such a strong feel, like, that's different than the rest of the movies, that I don't. That's why it shocked me to hear that.
Oh, okay, yeah. I still think part of it is, I think DC was. I mean, he wasn't allowed to make a rated R movie with either of the Guardians movies,
right? Yes, and he makes a hard R movie in this one.
Yeah. So yeah, it's in some ways I think that this movie suffers because we've already seen Guardians twice.
Yeah, a little bit, but I was never okay. So there are a few things where you see it and you're like, oh yeah, the close up of like the radio playing, not current hits, but nostalgia music. Mm-hmm. That part, a lot of slow-mo walks towards the camera, which is kind of a James Gunn thing. But other than that, I think like
it's
like
a
you
ragtag
said,
bunch of losers who are on the wrong side of the law who pull together to do good.
Yeah. That is very that meet each other in prison.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Where's I going with this? Oh, but I did want to talk about like the R. I feel like DC has decided we're gonna go dark and gritty, right? With all their newish movies. And I think this was the best choice of like a group of characters to do that with, other than like Superman. And he managed to still make it like pretty dark and have it still be absolutely hilarious. Mm-hmm. And that is a fine line to walk. So he must have had a ball making this.
I think so. I think they did have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I mean, there's some really, really dark shit, some really dark humor in it, but it still like just pops off the screen. I mean, the dialogue and the visuals, like everything, it's really entertaining. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it's completely bananas.
Yeah, I love a movie that just goes completely batshit crazy, like gets there. This movie starts there.
Yeah.
And it never really takes its foot off the gas for like 2 hours. There's definitely the James Gunn, like, we're in a vehicle, we're getting from point A to point B, let's have some character moments as we get to know our players, sort of thing. Which he handles surprisingly well. Like, there's a character called Ratcatcher 2 who, was actually a really funny play on, if anything else, the old Who's Who books that they used to put out, which were these, like, basically here's profiles of our characters. And, in the comics, they don't call them Ratcatcher 2. But my guess is he was going through Who's Who, figuring out who he wanted, and found the profile for, or whatever, saw that was a thing. Because I don't know, I've never seen Ratcatcher or Ratcatcher 2 in the comics. I did recognize the mask, but I don't remember the context. I think it was Batman issues from about 87. He did it. I mean, that was the character's name, which was awesome.
Yeah.
It was like, the sequel. And, I did wonder watching, there's this really kind of moving scene between where she's talking about the version she tells people about how she became the rat catcher after her father died, and kind of her youth and all that. And James Gunn has a good hand with that stuff. Like, you're laughing about the fact that someone's top of their head got sliced off, and then 30 minutes later, you're getting a little choked up seeing a story about a guy covering him and his daughter with rats.
Yeah.
You know, and that's a weird thing to be able to do in a movie.
Yeah.
In a superhero movie.
Yeah. And I mean, the connections that are made between these 4 or 5 characters happen so quickly but believably. Like, there's not much room to play with when in an action movie where, you know, you have starfish flying around. But yeah, the how he gets you to be choked up by the end is kind of amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. He has compared it himself to, this is DC's first war movie.
Yeah, I can see that.
You can definitely see, like, the influence of the Dirty Dozen, all of which was in the Ostrander book. And I should mention that John Ostrander...
he played a character.
Yeah, he plays a Dr. Fitzgibbon. So I'm going to have to go back and
I don't remember who that is, actually.
I'm sure, much like bringing in, you know, Ed Brubaker, and, you know, he's just a background player.
Sure.
But, yeah, it's some surprisingly deft direction for what the hell this thing is. I'd suspected from the trailer that Starro was in it. And so, Starro, Jamie.
I mean, I know Starro because you have a little plushie of Starro. And that's kind of it. I mean, it's never been in any of the cartoons, I don't think.
He was, yeah.
Was he? Okay, well, I blacked that out, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't... Not that familiar with Starro, except that...
Wait, was he? I was thinking he was in a JLU episode, but now maybe I'm thinking he's not.
That was also 20 years ago when I was watching it. But I do know that when he first showed up in the previews or Twitter or something, Ryan kind of lost his mind, so...
Yeah, so Starro is literally like the original JLA villain. Really? Yeah, he is. The JLA debuted in 1961 in Showcase Presents, I think number 28. And they were like, we just need a threat to bring all the heroes together into a single title.
Space Starfish.
So they had this giant space starfish because it didn't frickin' matter. The point was, you know, since then, Starro shows up every once in a blue moon. And it is pretty much just like this in the movie. I mean, he's a giant spacefaring starfish who takes over, you know, people's minds and stuff, and, you know, attaches Starros to them. It was a crucial part of the Batman Beyond storyline when they brought in the JLU.
Well, I have to say that when I was a kid, I had a really strange fear of starfish. I thought they were very creepy.
Well, I mean...
And this paid off. Now I'm justified. This is why you should fear starfish.
Yeah, I mean, it's a completely insane visual to have a giant starfish rampaging
with a huge eye in the middle of its face. Like, it doesn't have a face. That's the whole thing. The starfish.
Right. And it's funny because I know people are going to think, oh, that's derivative of this, that, or the other, and I'm just like, no. Starro is the OG, man.
What would it be derivative of, though?
Someone said, oh, they had that in, I think it was Jennifer said that thing was in that Godzilla movie.
Oh, someone does call it a kaiju in this.
Well, I mean, there's a giant, I think, starfish that Godzilla fights in one of the movies.
I can't believe we haven't seen
We did.
it.
We watched it as a Monday night thing with Jennifer. It might not have had, I can't remember. It was whatever plankton from space or whatever it was. Space amoeba. That's what it was. It wasn't Godzilla.
Oh, space. Okay, I blacked that out. Okay.
Yeah. And Simon, when he was asking me about it, because he'd already seen it, he was like, "Well, James Gunn kind of ripped himself off from Slither, which is about little space worms taking people over." And I was like, "No. This is Starro predates all of this.
He ripped
stuff,
Slither off from Starro."
Well, Slither's Night of the Creeps, but we won't go down that path. But yeah, I mean, it has an ending that I was just absolutely delighted watching. You're kind of like, why did they put Ratcatcher 2 into this at all as a character?
That was one of the scenes where I thought the flashback worked really, really well. Because she's, about to be murdered. And then they're like, okay, let's rewind. Mm-hmm. And show what the other group is doing, which at the moment, halfway through that scene, I was like, where are the other guys? Oh, right, they split up. Mm-hmm. And in most action movies, they do this back and forth thing, where they keep jumping back and forth to keep the motion going. Like, what's going on with this group? What's going on with this group?
Yeah, the Return of the Jedi, sure.
Yeah, exactly. But in this one, they're like, no, we're going to be with, is his name Peacemaker?
Yeah.
Shit. Peacemaker and Rick Flag, and I forgot who else was with them. Oh, yeah, Ratcatcher. And shit kind of goes sideways. Peacemaker is fucking shit up and is going to kill Ratcatcher. And that's when it flashes to the other group and what they've been doing this whole time. And so on and so forth. What's Idris Elba's character name? Bloodsport.
Yeah.
I mean, there's this hilarious scene where when it first started happening, I was like, oh, it's a crumbling building again. It's a scene where it's going to be you're dead. But it's just so funny. Like the floor that he's on just keeps falling like by increments, all the way down to where Ratcatcher is.
I do want to point out, so we only ever saw the first of the 3 Hobbit movies. And the point at which that movie utterly lost me was there's a scene where the dwarves are like falling down a series of bridges, and it takes like 5 minutes, and it's just, that I can handle some unrealistic physics in a movie.
It's an assault to physics. Yeah.
And this one I was kind of like, oh, this is how you should have done that, Peter Jackson.
Yeah.
Like, this was so clever, and anyway,
Yeah, they needed him to get down, like,
10 stories?
How many stories? Yeah, 10 stories, but they needed him not to die doing it, because he is human.
Yeah.
And it was kind of brilliant how they did it. Yeah. And it was hilarious at the same time. When you're just laughing, like, where is this going to stop? Oh, it stops where we left off with the other folks. So, I mean, it's just, that part was really, really brilliant. And then a couple other places that I thought the writing was just genius, because at the very beginning, and this is right where I decided, okay, I'm on board with this. Like, I had an open mind going into it, and I was enjoying myself, but you really didn't know the characters very well. When they're storming the village... That was the first scene where I started like really laughing my ass off and going, okay, I know what this movie's doing. This is hilarious. But in the back of my head, I was thinking like, how do they know this is the right village? Like,
really?
What if these are not the bad guys? Just because it was so brutal, like how they were getting killed. I was like, these are real people, and you're seeing their faces and stuff. They're not like stormtroopers. So that was going on in the back of my head. And then right then they find Rick Flag, and he's like, okay, guys, these are like the good guys that you just killed and murdered. And it just got so dark right then. I'm like, oh my God, this movie. And so there was that. And then later on, they do the slow-mo walk into, what's the, you said the name of the lab earlier, Jotunheim? Jotunheim. They do the slow-mo in, and it's got like the whole group together. In the back of my head, I'm going, wait, why is the bus driver... They pick up this bus driver midway through. His name is Milton, and he's just a guy. Like, he's a quarter Maltesian or something. Yeah. And he kind of gets dragged into this. And he's walking with them. Yeah. You can see him on the edge. And in the back of my head, I'm going... wait a minute, he's not a superhero. What the hell is he doing? But then I forget about it because, they're doing their final action sequence. And then he gets killed, like, almost immediately. And, oh gosh, what's the other? Polka Dot. He's like,
man.
You guys, Milton's dead. And then there's this hilarious conversation of, who's Milton? Why the hell didn't he stay on the bus? It just keeps going.
So
that was a huge payoff.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'd seen the original Suicide Squad, and I've seen Birds of Prey. I've had a hard time being into Harley Quinn because I kind of think of Harley Quinn as being and this includes the comics and everything else, because I tend to think of Harley as being Arlene Sorkin's voice in the Bruce Timm animation.
Yeah.
And if it's not that, it never quite hits me right. After dozens of comics, other cartoons that weren't that, whatever else, and this is the first thing I've seen that made me feel like someone got the voice right. And it hasn't ever been the problem. Margot Robbie has never been the problem.
No, obviously, because she's still here.
Yeah. She's working her heart out, and was always. But a lot, and I will also get on people's bad side by saying I just didn't find the cartoon on HBO Max funny. Like other people, it's the best thing ever, and I was always kind of like, this is going to age really poorly. And the jokes to me just felt not great. They never struck me as actually being funny. So that's just my sense of humor or whatever. But this was the first time in years I felt like, oh, okay, this take on Harley Quinn, and I don't know really what the difference is other than. One, in the first Suicide Squad, they should have either made a Harley Quinn and Joker movie, or they should have made a Suicide Squad movie. And Joker just keeps showing up while they're trying to do this other thing. And I don't even really remember what the plot line is, but you can't ever really get away from the fact. I think that the audience has really struggled with the fact that Harley's origin story, as originally presented, has deep roots of misogyny in it, and they've never really backed off from that. That was always kind of the point, was Joker doesn't care about her. If she gets blown up, he'll go, oh no, and go on with his day. It doesn't matter how dedicated she was to him. And the audience wanted her to also be a hero, which was always a weird twist to me. And so I just felt like that really dragged down the original Suicide Squad. It just really put a lot of extra weight on the movie of her kind of sorting through all of this stuff. This movie doesn't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Between that movie and Birds of Prey, they dealt with her whole arc with all of that, and she can go on. We don't need to worry about Jared Leto popping out of a trash can, and
I agree with you. This is the first time I've really, really, really enjoyed. I liked parts of Birds of Prey, but I kind of liked the other characters more than I liked her.
Yeah.
And I don't know what about her in that movie kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Maybe there's too much of her. I read something that I found interesting. When she was talking to James Gunn about this movie, she said she had an interest in just being there as an agent of chaos and not being the focus of the narrative.
Yeah, that's kind of what...
And I think that's how she's best used. I mean, she has plenty to do in this movie, and the stuff that she has is amazing. There's a scene in this movie where she has a 5 to 10 minute romance with the current president of Corto Maltese, and then ends up shooting him in the face. And it is the funniest thing I've seen in ages.
Yeah.
It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I loved her character in this movie.
Yeah. Watching her go through this arc in like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it's just this whole thing. She goes through all of it.
And she learned a lesson in a very Harley way.
Yeah, but it's like her personality is to 11 like all the time with everything.
Yeah.
And that played out really, really well here.
Yeah.
And the fact that they go rescue, and I put that in air quotes, Rick Flag, but then they also find out where she is, and they go rescue her, and they don't even get to that part because she gets out of it herself in just an unbelievable fashion.
Yeah.
Like, it's so...
And they could have bypassed her escape in some ways, right? I mean, they could have done because the punchline is Bloodsport's dangling from a building, and Rick Flag's all paranoid because they're about to.
They're getting ready to go in.
Yeah.
She's like, "What are you guys doing?"
Yeah. and Idris Elba, crawling back down the building, and because they were kind of looking forward to this. But they could have skipped that whole. But what they did with it was so good with her escaping and kind of all the cartoons, Snow White stuff.
I loved the visuals. I've heard some bitching online about, that was a bit much, with the flowers and stuff. I loved it.
Those people were not getting what this movie was doing.
I thought it looked amazing. It was so fun.
Yeah, it was her POV. I mean, it's...
Yeah. She's not all there.
Yeah.
And so... but they did that with Polka Dot, too. Like, every time he got mad, they showed his POV. He sees everyone as his mom, who he hates.
Yeah.
And he wants to kill. Even Starro, which was so freaking funny.
Yeah, I mean, you're all heading towards certain punchlines in this movie, and that punchline of giant mom. And because all the characters are kind of crazy, and they're used to being around crazy, they're just like, well, we'll just exploit that. It's not like, let's have a moment and work through this with Polka Dot Man. They're just like, Polka Dot Man, that's your mom. Which, I am sure there's a part of the audience that's outraged at that. Whatever. But, yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of anything that I didn't think worked or I didn't really like in the movie. And I don't want to say like, oh my God, this is the Citizen Kane of superhero movies. But what it was trying to do, I think it did very, very well. If anything bugged me, it was this just is Guardians of the Galaxy 3 in a lot of ways. This is, gang of misfits together, figuring out how to be a family. That's, your found family thing.
But I liked Guardians so much that if we just get more Guardians, but kind of different way, I'm okay with that.
Yeah. I mean, and just James Gunn's feel for things, we're gonna not just do King Shark. I'm gonna, I know Sylvester Stallone. We're gonna get him for that.
King Shark was so endearing.
For a horrible creature.
He eats people just picks them up and eats them whole. But it was so touching. He's like, Ratcatcher comes up to him and says, okay, why did you eat me? Would you eat your friends? And he's like, I don't have any friends. Like, okay, well, how about we become friends? And then you won't eat any of us. Like Ryan was saying, it's a little different, but you use your own words against you, that's the line that he won't cross. We'll make that line.
Yeah, people aren't super familiar with King Shark, but he's popped up in a version of Aquaman. I believe he was a Superboy villain originally, the 1990s version of Superboy. And then he popped up on the Flash show, the TV show.
Yeah.
And that's when I knew that show was serious about being a DC Comics show. It was like, okay, you got to do Gorilla Grodd, and I'm glad you did. And then it was like, oh, it's King Shark. I was like, oh my God, they're this show's not great, but at least they're doing. I did like King Shark,
on the Flash, but I have to say, I loved
this version's much.
I loved the design of him on the because again, he eats people. He's kind of scary, but then they give him this dad bod. He's kind of frumpy.
Yeah.
From the head down, and it's so endearing. It really is.
Yeah, it looks like someone did a doodle of what a
Yeah,
man shark
they made him
would
like a rectangle almost with like a shark head.
be. Yeah. He's wearing pants.
He is wearing pants.
Yeah. Like, why is he wearing pants?
Yeah. But I did get a little feel of like, oh, Hulk can't use the elevator when they were in Jotunheim when he had to use the stairs and everyone else was taking the
Yeah, well,
lift.
there's kind of the sad little scene of when they're all like kind of partying in the bar.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just sitting there like
they
bobbing
flash
his head.
it out. He's sitting in the van and he's like bobbing his head to the music. They're like, no, you can't go inside. Oh, I love that. They're talking about, oh, you need to wear clothes so that you won't stand out to everyone. And he's like, okay, well, I can put on a mustache. Like, no, honey, you have to wait in the van.
The movie also has, you always have the kind of back at, headquarters scenes.
Yes.
And, Viola Davis, not a secret, she's a good actor. If this is breaking news to you.
She's such a good, and I can't, CCH Pounder.
Yeah.
Was the voice in the cartoons, and she was just phenomenal.
I have a story about that, but go ahead.
Okay. And I had not seen until she showed up on, this was just a waste of a good actress. I can't remember who played her on Smallville.
Angela Bassett played her in Green Lantern.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
It was Pam
Grier.
Pam Grier. And I was like, oh, I was so excited. Mm-hmm. And then they really didn't do anything with her. Oh my gosh.
Pam Grier costs money. Smallville didn't have money.
Exactly. But Viola Davis is so, like, I did not see the first movie. She was probably good in that too, even though it was probably a shitty script. But, she was amazing here. Like, she's scary.
Yeah.
She doesn't have any powers. Mm-hmm. And she's still like, oh, okay, I could blow your head off at any moment. And I'll do it. And I'll kill your kid too. And just like, no regrets.
Yeah. The quick story about CCH
Pounder, I think,
is apparently she never remembered she'd ever played the role between coming back in to do it, and she'd just be like, "Who am I?" And they're like, and then she'd knock it out of the park and go, "It doesn't matter. Apparently, we just want her voice." And she never had seen the cartoon because people are asking her if she was going to do cons and whatever, and she was kind of like, "Pardon me for what?" And they're like, "You're Amanda Waller." She's like, "Oh, right, yeah, I guess she just." Not in her world at all. But yeah, Viola Davis in this has, the ethics of Suicide Squad are, of course, a total nightmare. Mm-hmm. It's black ops that are happening, from our supposedly trustworthy government, and we're using criminals as labor to go perform these things kind of against their will. With the threat of death if they don't march forward, ever forward. Amanda Waller is not a nice person. And it was fascinating after me being kind of obsessed with this character since I was like 12 to see someone actually whack her over the head.
Yeah. I mean, again, this is something that had been suggested throughout the movie. With little hints of like her crew is not comfortable with this.
Yeah.
Like you can see like from their reactions, and so I figured something was going to happen. They were going to stop her in some way, but I didn't know they were going to bean her.
Yeah, I thought there was going to be some speech or something, or she was going to have the moment of reflection, and yeah, she didn't get that. So.
No.
Amanda Waller is going to be Amanda Waller.
I'm surprised they all still had jobs at the end of the movie. Unless she just respected that.
I mean, so one of the things that's true, I haven't talked much about John Cena as Peacemaker. Mm-hmm. Peacemaker, the first time I ever saw him was in a crowd shot in Crisis on Infinite Earths. And I was like, what the hell is that? Because it's a guy in a t-shirt wearing a toilet bowl on his head. And I think he's an old Charlton character. That like Charlton was where the Question came from. And
okay.
It was a different company that DC just bought kind of outright. Blue Beetle was originally Charlton. And they just didn't ever really have anything to do with Peacemaker, but someone every 15 years decides they're going to do something with Peacemaker, and he shows up somewhere. But it's that freaking helmet, man. It's the dumbest. It's maybe the least cool superhero thing. The Polka Dot Man is way cooler than the Peacemaker's outfit. Kite Man is cooler than Peacemaker's outfit. And they're doing a TV show.
Well, John Cena's been owning that. He's been showing up to talk show interviews in the costume.
Yeah.
He's very proud of it.
I mean, and the character is honestly pretty great. I mean, they really get into, this dude is so full of shit. Like, he's not crazy. He's just totally full of shit.
No, but it kind of hit me while watching it that, like, this guy is, like, the true American asshole.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in every way.
Yeah.
Like, everything that people hate about Americans, like, he's it.
Yeah. And it's kind of funny because back in the 80s, that was kind of a thing that they spoofed a bit in comics. There was stuff like martial law and other things like that. That, you know, comics were kind of finding this, you know, adult edge and, you know, kind of taking the extremes of the medium. They would, you know, there's a character even in Marvel Comics. Oh, God. Everyone's going to make fun of me because I'm totally blanking on his name. Nuke. Who is kind of that for Captain America, of like, it's different, but it's the same kind of idea that they play with, of the kind of the super soldier who's, it's not, he's more brain dead than John Walker, I'll put it that way. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, I think the character's actually like got some subtlety to it that I wasn't entirely expecting, but there's also some freaking hilarious moments where he's, you know, yeah, you can do it when it's cool. And yourself go, yeah, that's right. So yeah, it's just a fun. I wouldn't show it to my kids.
Oh hell no! Please do not show this to your children. Yeah. 17 and up, maybe 16.
Yeah, I mean, I would have probably watched this at 13 or 14, but you know.
Well, you would have. If your parents had known about this movie, they would have
loved this movie when I was 13 or 14.
Well, he would have loved it, but he would not have wanted you watching it. Really?
Oh.
Your parents were very different than mine.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
This is after Mom went to bed. This is what Dad put into the VHS player.
Wow.
Yeah. We're going to watch a little Apocalypse Now, boys.
Yeah, we watched movies on the honor system when I was a kid. We had HBO and Showtime, but it was, okay, you guys know you're not supposed to watch rated R movies. Okay. Then as soon as they were gone, rated R movie.
Yeah, no, we were watching like Aliens and Predator with my dad by the time I was, 13. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I wish I had more to say on this, but honestly, it was a lot. Mm-hmm. I didn't feel like it was too much, but I'm gonna have to go back and watch it a little bit more. There's just so many characters, so much going on that I probably missed, a bunch of stuff. But
we haven't discussed what I believe was supposed to be a version of Arms Fall Off Boy.
Oh my god! Well, he's also only in it for 2 seconds.
Yeah, I know, but so
that
Arms
made me
Fall
laugh
Off Boy.
So
yeah, he was, I believe, a Legionnaire. And I was saying something to someone about, now that's a movie I want to see, is Arms Fall Off Boy. And he's in Suicide Squad. And I was like, pardon?
Well, was he the one on the airplane where they asked him what his name stood for? And he was like, oh, it's just my name.
Yeah. I think maybe it stands for something kid.
Sorry, you're right.
I don't know what it actually stands for in this, but yeah, it's Nathan Fillion.
Oh, it's TDK.
Yeah, it's TDK. But they also blow up Jay Courtney, who had a major storyline in the first Suicide Squad. That was kind of my tell for.
See, I didn't even know who in here came from the first movie.
Yeah.
I mean, other than Margot Robbie.
I'm trying to think of who else, but anyway, yeah. I don't know. I mean, you're not going to learn a lot about life and loving from it.
No, this is pure escapism.
Yeah. And you get to see a Starro.
Which,
if you would have told me when I was 15 years old that there'd be a Starro running around in a movie when I was 46. Lots of baby
Starros.
Yeah. Well, I would have assumed if you had a big Starro, you were having baby. But yeah. Anyway, yeah, give it a go.
Yeah, recommended.
Yeah. And I've heard people say it's not for them, and believe me, man.
Yeah, you can probably tell within the first 10, 15 minutes if it's for you.
Yeah. And, no harm, no foul if this isn't, your thing. But I do think it's doing really badly at the box office, but it's also, we're having this week when we're recording this, we're in stage 5 in Austin. The Delta variant is running rampant. I think people just weren't going to the movies, but I think people also, DC has
burned some bridges.
Burned a lot of bridges.
Well, and if anyone hadn't seen the trailer, didn't know of James Gunn, and they're just going off of the last Suicide Squad, not great. And there's people who decided they hate James Gunn because of, various other reasons, but yeah, I mean, I don't really care if tomorrow DC decides it's going to pack it in for a few years at the movies. I know there's a new Batman coming, but I don't know about the rest of anything else. Aren't they making a Flash movie?
Oh, yeah, right. The multiverse Flash movie. That's going to be fun.
On the heels of Marvel's giant multiverse.
Yeah. So, kind of is what it is. It is weird to me that Suicide Squad is this, property that has kind of been thrust forward. It kind of tells you where the thinking was at with Warner Brothers for a long time. We don't have 4 Superman movies at this point. We don't have any Batman movies. We have a Batman who showed up in Batman and Superman and Justice League at the end of his career, not the beginning. And they're just like, it doesn't matter, Batman. And I'm like, but do we? Because this isn't Nolan's Batman and this isn't Keaton's Batman, so it'd be cool to see Batman.
It's not even Val Kilmer's Batman. George Clooney.
And maybe it is George Clooney's Batman. But yeah, I mean, they're seem to be in absolute turmoil. I did hear they're talking about doing a Superman show with Michael B. Jordan playing Superman, and you just hear all these things kind of popping off. Where my concern about it is that there's no consistent IP. Multiverses work when you have here's Thor and Captain America and Iron Man, and I understand this is the core storyline, but if you're like, it doesn't matter, it all is just things that we made up, it's harder for people to kind of get invested in the way people got invested in the Marvel U.
Yeah,
so
for sure.
Anyway,
that was something that I was worried about with this movie when it first started, when they were killing people off. It's like, am I gonna get attached to anyone in this movie? And I did. So
yeah.
I mean, and if
it was Polka Dot Man.
Oh,
he got what he wanted.
He did.
He got what he wanted.
He did.
So, yeah. Anyway, yeah, I don't know what the future holds for DC Comics at the movies. I would very much like a cohesive universe, but I think it being that the thing they're investing in is a bunch of D-list villains getting killed. It's good for me because I don't give a shit. I've got HBO Max.
Meanwhile, their core Superman and Batman and Wonder Woman, Gal Gadot's not that old, but I mean, if they wait around any longer, those guys are not getting any younger.
Oh no! I mean, there's another Shazam movie that's about to come out as well.
Shazam was alright.
There's a Black Adam movie coming out that Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is saying is going to be shifting everyone's favorite hero, whatever, to being Black Adam, who, by the way, is a murderous villain in the comics.
Okay.
Murders people. Lots of them, without thinking about it.
So do these folks.
Yeah. So, but I'm assuming it'll be a family movie that takes place in the jungle.
That's a Rock joke, y'all.
So, anyway. Suicide Squad.
Suicide Squad.
Genesis the clue, he was 12 years old. Fell from
about wraps it up for this edition of The Signal Watch, a production of the League of Melbotus. Thanks for sticking with us. If you enjoyed the podcast, we invite you to drop on by the Signal Watch blog, where you'll find write-ups of a wide variety of movies and more. We'd love to hear from you, so find us online and let us know what you think. Whether you prefer email, blog comments, or social media, we'll be happy to hear from you. We'll be back soon with more exceedingly high-quality content. So, until next time, God damn it, babies, you've got to be kind.